Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host Ed Charbeneau, and with me is my co-host John Bristowe. How you doing, John?
I'm cold. It's cold here.
It's cold
That's why I'm
in
wearing the
Australia.
sweater. Yes, it does get cold here. So we're entering into our winter.
All right, John. On this show, we like to give our spin on the news and what we deem important. So why don't we start with a little share of our screen, and we'll talk about what's latest and greatest in the news today. They changed my StreamYard layout here. There. Oh, that's not it either. There
That
we
works.
go. There we go.
Yeah.
That gets our big mugs off the main page. I saw this come across. Okay, Epic Games flying up on the screen. There we go. I saw this come across the wire a short time ago. Blue Sky social network. Have you gotten on that yet, John?
No, I saw the hype train around it, and I was like, I'll wait.
I've been waiting for another social network to come around.
Sure.
Not a big fan of Twitter. Haven't been on there for about, I want to say 6 to 8 months now. It's been kind of like silently waiting for something. So when I gave up on Twitter, I kind of like regained a lot of time and mental energy and lack of stress from bothering with the other one.
Perfect.
So just haven't really looked into much, but this sounded interesting. So
Okay.
Blue Sky is a new social network from the previous creator of Twitter. And one of the things they did recently is open source their client application. So this is kind of a new thing for this type of social network. I guess you could say Mastodon is open source, but there isn't really a dedicated client for that. There's a couple like homebrew or small independent startup type software that runs on your phone, apps for your phone and iOS and Android. They're not very good. None of them are very good. So it's nice to see Blue Sky's open source theirs, so you can make contributions to it, fork it, all that stuff. This
All
was
right.
written about 2 days ago. It's up on GitHub. It's got about 1,300 stars as the day this was published. I wonder what it's up to now. Let's see if it's gaining momentum still. Yeah, it's up to 2,000 stars. That's not anything crazy, but it's up there if you want to take a look at it. Got both the iOS and Android software there. I haven't looked at this. I don't know what it's written in quite yet, but if you want to check it out, I see some JavaScript files in here and stuff.
It's probably mostly TypeScript, JavaScript. So
Yeah, so it's probably using like let's see if it says anywhere in here, like React Native or something maybe.
I would imagine it uses some framework. Yep. So
Some framework. I'm pretty sure that's a safe bet these
sure.
days.
You take a look at the package.json file if you wanted. So here's your. I'm looking at it. I'm thinking React Native because I just saw
Yeah,
some
it looks,
TSX.
yeah, it's definitely some form of React, probably React Native. So if you want to check it out, it's up there on, yeah, there it is, React Native. So they're using React Native. If you want to check it out, make some contributions, just see how it was written. Go up on GitHub. It's under Blue Sky Social App. You can check that out. Or what's even better, just file issues. If you have problems with it, you can openly file issues against it. So that's nice as well.
Awesome.
So looking forward to something new coming out of social networking. We'll see. But open sourcing your software is a good start. Speaking of social networks, John, it's a good old friend of ours.
Burke.
You probably know this guy, right?
Yeah.
Good old Burke Holland. He's been at the social networking for 100 days straight. So for 100 straight weeks of posting content on Visual Studio Code productivity. So if you're not following Burke, he's up on VS Code TikTok and the YouTube Shorts channel. And he's got a lot of really good productivity things. And these are like, bite-size help segments that he runs on their social networks. And, subscribe to those so you can get something actually usable in your feed, not just the usual, I can't say the word, the negative posting that you normally see, the
Right.
doom scrolling that you go through.
Hmm.
But there's lots of good stuff up there on Burke's. It's actually the official Visual Studio Code and YouTube short channels, but it's Burke that's
Yeah.
pushing that content through, and it's
Yeah, they've been doing
quite a bit of
they've been doing a
content.
great job of posting content. So they've done virtual days. They've done a whole bunch of they have a whole bunch of shows that they publish. They do a lot of live content, both on TikTok and on YouTube. And so if you're looking for kind of tips and tricks on those sorts of things, either follow the VS Code channel on TikTok or on YouTube, and you'll get a daily um, smattering of tips and tricks and all that sort of stuff. So Burke does a lot of these. I
Hmm.
like Burke's style. He's pretty funny and
Yeah, he's entertaining.
casual. Yeah, he's casual and does a really good job of them.
Yeah, you've got topics on like AI and GitHub branches and all sorts of stuff just that you
Hmm.
can manage right out of Visual Studio Code.
Yep.
This has been something he's been really passionate about for quite some time. He actually used to work on our team here at Progress, and this is what he transitioned to. Is he moved over to Microsoft and began working on this almost immediately. So he's been at this for
Hmm.
quite some time. So
Yep.
make sure you check that out. He's up. Look at this, almost 376,000 followers on TikTok.
Yep. Yep. It's the new hotness.
Millions,
Come on, Ed. That's
millions
what
of
all the kids are
likes.
using.
He's in the right place. He's hitting the right audience here.
Yep.
Gotta hit the hipsters with the VS Code stuff right where they live, man.
Hipsters. Hipsters. I haven't heard that term in a while.
All right. Uh, we'll jump straight from hipsters to the state of continuous delivery report for 2023. That's a
Yes.
awesome segue.
Yeah, I know. Just perfect. Yeah.
I did
I
plan
love
this
it.
poorly. So, John, this is a link of yours.
Yeah.
I'm not the CI/CD guy, so you'll have
That's
to fill
okay.
me in. Is this kind
No
of like the
problem.
state of JS or that sort of thing?
It's similar to that. So this is a report that was been written by Slash Data, which is a company that does a bunch of trend analysis with developers. It's been published under the CD Foundation. The CD Foundation is a collection of projects, open source companies, companies that are privately held, etc., ones that are publicly held, etc. And there goes Ed. That's okay. I'll keep talking. So the CD Foundation is a place where they publish a lot of content. It's a foundation for a lot of a lot of those things. And the State of Continuous Delivery report is a report that's now in its fourth iteration. And so this is a report on what folks are doing with in the state of DevOps relative to delivering software. Now, the report itself is not super interesting. There's things that are kind of okay, but the most interesting observation that was made was that they saw that teams that adopt CI/CD pipelines that incorporate 10 or more tools were a greater chance of being more productive, not less productive, more productive than those that adopted less than that. On average, when looking at people's pipelines, dev teams typically adopted about four to five tools in their pipeline. That is different tools like I use GitHub, I use Datadog, I use Octopus, I use all these things in my pipeline basically. And so they found that typically if you use 10 or more tools in your pipeline, you were more likely to be more productive or a high performing team rather. And so that was an interesting sort of insight there. We did a summary blog post up on the Octopus blog about this, summarizing all the data. But generally what it does is it speaks to how folks out there are establishing their pipelines, building out software, how often they're deploying, etc. They're talking about metrics like MTTR, which stands for mean time to recovery. These are basically this is all about the process of managing your software development lifecycle relative to CI/CD. And so if you're interested, you can check out the report, compare yourself to see how you stack up to other developers out there. And so this is a report that's now available. You can check out now.
Yeah, it looks like it's really well written. Nice analysis in there. Some really nice looking graphs as well. I know you're really into Go. You've been working with a
Yep.
lot of Go stuff. What's
Yep.
the another survey here? Go
Yes, I
Developer
know.
Survey
Sorry, it's surveys.
2023.
It's I know it's report and survey time.
It's that
It's
time
that
of the
time of
year.
year. Exactly. So the Go team publishes a developer survey every quarter, and this is the latest one they have for 2023 Q1. The key findings, which you see listed there, basically don't do anything like there's nothing like whoa out of this report, other than the fact that error handling and learning are respondents' top challenges, which is that second bullet point there. And it was funny, they're like, historically, lack of generics was the biggest challenge, but since we've introduced that, everything's been fine. But error handling is continuing to be a bane of people's existences when working with Go. There are resources to help you with these sorts of things. So there's, for those who don't know, on the Go website, there's the effective Go guide, which is it's like the Bible of how to write really good Go code. But this report basically summarizes what people in the Go community are feeling, how they're working with Go, the language. There's a lot of new developers in this audience, which is great to see. You're seeing a lot of attraction from new folks who are new to the language, etc. And so, reports like this are great. I think, it's good to know what the state of the community is doing. And so this is just, generally speaking, the state of the Go community is very strong.
Nice. Yeah, these are always really helpful. I like state of JS and state of what's the other one? CSS. That's another good one. It lets you know, what features are up and coming or popular, what frameworks are up and coming, popular, that sort of thing. Helps you kind of identify where your skills need to go if you're lacking in some place. You can, maybe you need to pick up some new features and try them out, incorporate those into your code base, that sort of thing. These are always really great learning resources, if anything.
I've sent you mentioned the state of CSS report. I put a link in the private chat there. This is the latest thing that I saw on CSS, which made me chuckle a little bit. This is the world's best CSS developer trophy.
Nice.
I thought this was very good.
This is a 3D printing, what do you call it? Mesh or whatever they're called. You can download and print this out.
Yep.
I love it. That's perfect.
Yep.
I didn't realize ZD.net changed their branding, unless this is just their innovations.
It's very wired, if you ask me.
It's very Telerik colored. I like that green. It's very, very intense. It's a little bit brighter than ours, a little more neon, but it's close. I know you're a huge fan of Meta and all the things they do, John.
No, Ed, I got to call you out here. I hate the fact that you haven't called out the fact that you haven't acknowledged my foretelling, that you haven't said you're right. I'm really insulted by this, that the metaverse maybe wasn't a great idea, and that, maybe having legs is important.
I'm not sure if I've ever said the metaverse was important, but AR and VR, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if the metaverse is really a thing that you could tangibly.
Oh, it is. It is, Ed. It's a place where you go to burn. It's a place you go to burn money.
It is. That's for sure. It is a thing you invest in if you want to lose lots of money.
Yes.
So
Sorry, I digress.
Still waiting for the AR, VR stuff to kind of break ground.
Oh, that's okay. AI is going to make it all better.
Yeah, AI is the new hot thing right now, right? That's the saving grace of all of these companies is ChatGPT and anything AI related.
Yep. Yep.
So I brought this up, John, because we talk about like the M processors from Apple, which we always find interesting. So it looks like Meta has gotten into the silicon business.
Sure, why not? Well. Sure, why not? Yep.
I mean, you got billions to burn on fake hats that you can wear in VR. I mean, we might as well make something tangible too.
Not to poo-poo on the industry, but I've never seen so many boats turn 90 degrees at once.
Oh, yes.
When it comes to AI, I've never seen this in my life. This rapid amount of turning. Anyways, go on.
Yeah, everybody's going for king of the hill here because this has happened in other technologies in the past, like search, for example. Like once Google really got crowned king of search, like nobody else has been able to establish a foothold there.
I
So
remember things like this happen all the time. Push technology back in the 90s, like, I don't know. I mean, right? So there's all kinds of sort of trends that people follow. Anyways, they've got
mhm.
a chip, evidently.
Yeah, yeah, they have a chip that runs optimized PyTorch, which we've talked about a little bit on here as well.
We
So
have,
a
yes.
Python-based AI framework called PyTorch, which I didn't realize until I started reading this again that it's actually, you know, their platform. So that's about the gist of it, though. It's dedicated silicon just for running these routines. So it's for training and for running the models. I think this is meant to go in server blades. So this isn't something I think you're going to find like on a phone or in
Right.
your computer on your desktop. But they're system on a chip that's going to go inside of a blade that goes in a big server, so you can scale up these model building and running routines. So
It's funny they don't mention the notion of an NPU in here. They're just citing the CPU, GPU. They're
mhm.
not mentioning the fact that it's an NPU. I guess it is, but
Yeah, they call it. They coined it differently. That's why
okay.
it is a MITA or MTIA. Sorry, a Meta Training and Inference Accelerator.
Well, I would make a joke about being MIA on this, but anyways, sorry.
So that's their terminology for it. That's why you're not seeing some generic thing. They want it to be branded. This is like the
Okay.
Retina display, John. It's not just a HD display. It's a Retina display.
All right. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yep.
Yeah. So marketing.
Look, when it comes to Meta, I don't know, the amount of money that they've lost recently, and I
Yeah,
just shake my head the whole time.
their stock's rebounding though, so who knows?
That's just the mania. You're seeing it everywhere. Any company that mentions AI now just has a pop, basically.
Yeah.
So this is what I was saying earlier about all these ships turning towards, the AI island, I guess, if you want to call it that. So we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see what happens.
They had some quick memory loss here though. And they're still down a bit. They're still
Hmm.
down, quite a bit actually. It did rebound though. It is on the uptrend. So like it fell. Whew, it rebounded quite a bit. So they were at their high was $363 a share, and then they invested in the metaverse, and they were down to $99 a share in October 2022. As of today, they're back up to $245 a share after they publicly abandoned the whole metaverse thing for a bit. They still harp on it every now and then, but they're
And
way
Ed,
less invested right now.
I harped on it the most, I think, on this podcast.
It's your fault. That's you, see, you were probably short selling, and
I
that's
know,
why.
dude, come on. I just thought it was, I just couldn't see it. I like it. I'm just like, I was like the whole time, I'm like, why is this a thing? And you can go back. I mean, months and months, shows of me just ranting and raving, like, why is this happening?
It
Anyways,
was it was all in an effort to tank their stock so you could make a quick buck. I know it.
no, no, not true. I wish I had that amount of power. I don't have anything close to anything remotely anything like that.
So speaking of machine learning, so whether you're a Meta and doing your ML on the MTIA processor, or your Microsoft and you've got some really neat tools that people can use.
yep.
I thought this was a nice blog post. I am a huge fan of the tools that Microsoft has been working on for ML, and they've been
Mm,
at this for quite some time. This isn't like a, um, us two, we have to get on this ML thing trend. Like they've been at this for quite a while. This is part of their model builder tool for Visual Studio
right.
and part of ML
Dog.
ML.net.
Object detection.
I
Perfect.
the dog finding a dog in a picture has to be like the to-do list app for ML.
Yep.
So
It's yeah, yeah. It's the Hello World to do app version of it. Yep. That's right.
the ML model builder, ML.NET model builder. This thing is really cool. So you download this, it's free. Download it, put it in your Visual Studio, and then you right click on your on a console app, a brand new console app, and you bring up the context menu, hit Add Machine Learning, and what it will do.
File new enterprise.
Yeah. So it actually brings up this step-by-step wizard
Hmm.
that helps you build a machine learning model. And you kind of have to know a little bit about ML. You have to know some of the terms about the technology, but you don't necessarily have to know like a certain library, framework,
Okay.
whatever, to actually make something with it, which I think is really cool. So it's kind of like that getting started wizard, that file new project wizard,
Yep.
but for machine learning. And this blog post is about a newer feature that they added to that ML model builder plugin. So they have a object detection in this tool now. So what you can do is, like I said, you right click on that and you get this wizard that comes up, and you've got your different types of scenarios here. You got data classification, recommendation, forecasting, but now they have some computer vision stuff in here, image classification, and object detection. So this is about how to use that object detection scenario. And set up your training environment. What's really cool here is you can target a local GPU, or if you have something really big, you got a huge pool of data that you're going to run this model against, you can actually scale that out to Azure, and it'll spin up GPUs in the cloud for you. Of course, you have to have license for that and pay for those bits, but you can run it locally as well if you want to. So you could target your GTX processor, and then you feed it your data and you train it on what it is that you're trying to identify, and you label your elements. So in this example, you're labeling out some cats and dogs or whatever it is, and then you train your model. What's really nice here is the training that it does in Visual Studio. You have the option of like scaling this over time, or you can do it on large amounts of data, however you'd like. There's kind of like a slider involved that you can kind of adjust how long you want to train the model to get the accuracy you want. And then when you're done, you just take your model that you built and plug it into your .NET code, and you write .NET APIs around using the model as a service in your application. So everything is in .NET, including the model, the trainer, all of it. But this front end does like the scaffolding work for you, so you don't have to do this all by hand. It gives you a nice piece of code when you're done that you can adjust later and retrain and stuff like that. You can even run that off the console or however you'd like to do it. It's pretty cool.
Neat.
Stuff.
Yeah, I like it.
While we're talking about .NET, we've got .NET 8 Preview 4.
Hooray!
I'm not quite sure if there's anything besides. I did look at this. There's some new terminal outputs. So I typically don't use the .NET CLI too often,
Okay.
and this is one of the main reasons why is the deciphering what comes out of the terminal when something goes wrong. They say it very nicely here, is often a
Yes.
wall of text, and it's hard to see what's what. So they improved the output of what comes out of the command line. There's some nice color highlighting, and then success and fail statuses are more prominent, and you can toggle these things as well. In case you have some kind of automation running, you don't really need to see this stuff. You can turn it off and so on. So that's always a nice add. I don't think there's too many things that affect developers directly in this release. So it's maybe the AOT improvements. Let's see what else. Pretty big release here, but it's a lot of like under the cover stuff that you're not going to use directly. It's a lot of indirect stuff.
We've been talking about all the performance to processing JSON. So system.text.json, especially around streaming context, huge improvements there. I think that's super important, especially when talking about APIs, which tends to use JSON quite a bit. So I think that's the big one that for me that I've seen.
Yeah, so the real interesting stuff, and not that this isn't interesting, but this tangible stuff that you're gonna be able to put your hands on and try out yourself,
Yep.
came in the ASP.NET Core update for Preview 4. So there's actually quite a few Blazor things that are in production, and they're publishing those out in Preview 4 already. From what I read in this post, some of these things are not feature complete, so use them with caution.
Okay.
But if we jump down to Blazor, there is stream rendering with Blazor components. This requires server-side rendering, and like I said, there be dragons, so you may have to suppress some of the errors that are coming
So
out of
can,
this.
can you answer your question for me, Ed? Like when they say streaming rendering, they're talking about streaming of what exactly?
So that's what we'll get into in the example here. So what you
Oh,
could
sorry.
do is you could add an attribute to a component, and you
Okay.
could say stream rendering is true. It has to be server-side rendered for this to work. And typically, what you do with server-side rendering without this on is this this block of code, all of this block of code, would kind of just run and execute on the server, and then a pre-rendered page would be displayed. So you would not, for example, see this loading statement. It would happen too fast. You'd be awaiting the service on the server and waiting for it to load the data, and then you'd get a payload
Right.
of the results. What the streaming rendering is going to do, and first of all, this isn't the best example, I don't believe, and I understand why they're doing a lot of work here. They haven't really written all of the documentation on this and stuff yet, but
No, I understand why they're doing this. Yeah,
I
like
think the point of
immediately
this
my
is
yeah, yeah.
they you would normally have multiple awaits, so you have to use your imagination a little bit here. This one is just pulling in like a database, and displaying data in
Yeah, yeah.
a grid. But you may have many things that are coming in on this page at different times. So keep that in mind as well. So
Yep.
when you enable this, what will happen is it will not be able to iterate over this forecast list because it has to load. So on the first pass on the initialization, it's actually just going to render this loading statement out,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then it will await this forecast statement, and it will come back and it will update the page in the sections that are waiting for data. So it will recognize that this for each loop is pending on this forecasts array because you're iterating here. And it will then iterate after the data comes in and then patch in whatever the results were from the server. So on the WebAssembly side, this might seem like it's nothing but the ordinary. On server side, you wouldn't normally see that loading message. It would just come
No.
across immediately there. But what's really cool is, like I said, if you have multiple awaits, maybe you have this data grid and there's like a chart on the other side or some other related data on the page, and they all have different databases they need to touch or services they need to interact with. Maybe one of those three items is a lot longer loading than the rest of them. They will independently fill in as they are fetched. So it will stream in multiple pieces of data. So if you have like a dashboard, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
you've
Mm-hmm.
got, 10 little widgets on the page, you don't have to wait for the longest running one to load before the entire page loads. They can load in as they're awaited. So
I
that could be
gotcha.
a huge, huge deal
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
for an application that has a really long running process, but many short running processes that can be executed. Another one here. This is kind of old school in my opinion. Handling form posts with server-side Blazor or server-side rendering. So this is actually just going old school, I believe, and it just goes back to a literal post like you would normally do on a web form.
Right. Right.
So there's like a whole render tree situation that's involved with Blazor, and when you turn on this new feature of server-side posting, it just goes to a more old school way of doing a form post. Is something that wasn't available before. Um, this is a small like quality of life thing in my opinion. Route to named elements in Blazor. So in your typical web page, again, this is very old school stuff. You have a web page, and there's actually an example right here. See this little anchor tag that's above my cursor, right in this
Yep.
section here. If I click on that, if we were to route to this page, we would be directed to the anchor of that topic.
Yep.
Apparently, this is something that server side or the SPA frameworks have a hard time with. So that has been corrected, and you can now do that inside of Blazor.
Sorry, you're saying SPA frameworks have a problem with that?
Yeah, so you're rendering your page typically from the client, and sometimes it's rendering that client.
Oh, because it doesn't have the full DOM tree yet,
Yeah,
and the ID that it has to key off of isn't
yeah.
known where it sits. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Between that and routing, you're using a different router, so you're using a single page. And you keep
Yeah.
routing
Yeah. Yeah.
within
Yeah. Yeah.
that context. So
Yeah.
sometimes
I
these
gotcha.
things, yeah, this has kind of been a long time missing, and now we have that. Um, this WebSil packaging for WebAssembly apps, this one's pretty interesting here. So uh, the way Blazor works is it uses DLLs. So you're actually sending DLLs across the wire to run in the browser. And there's a lot of firewall issues with DLLs running over the wire. So, this is kind of a legacy support issue where, back in the day, before these technologies existed, a lot of viruses and things may have been transmitted by sending, executables and
Sure.
anything, binaries and all sorts of stuff over the web that would be executed on the client's machine, and to try to block those type of files have been blacklisted. So there are large organizations that still have these rules in place. Therefore, Blazor applications have a hard time working in those environments because the files get blocked even when they're good files.
Yeah.
So what WebSil is an alternative. They call it web-friendly packaging of .NET assemblies that removes any content specific to native Windows execution and avoids environments blocking the use of DLL files. So you go in your properties in your application, turn this on, and you can now get past those firewall issues. And again, this is beta stuff here, so we're in quote preview. So if you have any problems, make sure you ping them on GitHub so they can fix those things. So down the line in November, we can have those fixes in place.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there's lots and lots of stuff here. We could probably go on for quite some time. Like I said, there's a lot of things that developers will touch in the ASP.NET release this time around. While we're talking about net, John, this is a link from you here, introducing temporal.net.
Yes. So temporal.io is the website. Temporal is basically a workflow, I guess, for lack of a better term, engine. They have language bindings for a bunch of languages, and so they've recently announced a .NET SDK. And so if you're looking to write workflows in .NET, this is now something that you can do. I know you're a fan of Windows Workflow Foundation, Ed. So
we've done this before, I feel like.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, hey, competition is good. So I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's a code first approach. I was about to say YAML. So no markdown, etc., for describing these things other than the fact you do it as code, and then basically this is how you describe this using their engine. And so
Cool.
yeah, I just mentioned it.
I like it. Very cool. This is kind of in a similar regard here. I thought this was a nice post. This Byte Hide blog has a lot of like beginner friendly articles.
Oh, nice.
Back to basics and
Yep.
whatnot.
Yep.
So this one's talking about transactions. It's a
Oh, God,
guide.
this is not
to
basic.
transactions.
This is not
I mean,
basic.
it's an introduction to transactions. It's not to say things are easy. Basic doesn't.
This
Always
is like
mean
saying,
easy.
here's an introduction to entering hell.
Just because something is hard doesn't mean it doesn't have basics.
Okay.
So this is an introduction to transactions in .NET. So it talks about some of the types that are in .NET that help you with transaction scopes and SQL transactions, how to try catch those, do rollbacks, and that sort of thing. So
If you read the literature about
nice post.
If you read the literature about .NET transactions, you can kind of understand. You get sucked in. It's kind of like a warm blanket. You're like, oh, this is easy. I get it. It's not until you actually start doing this across like multiple connections with multiple transactions with multiple customers and users, and that things start to get really gnarly. So,
Yeah, it's like time travel in a movie.
Okay.
It's like
Okay, Asperger's, to explain that one.
it's like have you ever seen Austin Powers? They're talking about time travel. He's like,
Yes,
oh,
kill
I've
your
gone cross-eyed.
grandfather, the paradox and all that. Yes.
He's like, oh, now I've gone cross-eyed. That's transactions.
Okay.
So there's a nice fact section here as well. It's like best practices facts.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Good post
Yep.
all around. So if you need to get back in touch with transactions, or maybe touching on them for the first time, maybe you need to roll back and read things again.
There should be a giant sign on here that says "There be dragons."
Yeah.
So
And then while we're on the topic of .NET, I have to throw a shameless plug in. We have our Telerik release webinars coming, Telerik and Kendo UI, the week of June 8th through the 12th. See the blog post for the dates that are specific to what you'd like to see.
lovely.
But we've got integration with .NET 8 previews, so you get those performance bonuses from
Nice.
those frameworks being updated. We've got cross-platform with Maui. So there's a lot of new stuff coming for the Maui platform in here as well. So Sam will be very busy during this webinar. We've got all the Kendo UI stuff as well, Fiddler tools, JustMock,
Beautiful.
your productivity tools. And of course, we'll be on Twitch, talk about all this.
I could talk a little bit about Fiddler. I've been using Fiddler quite a bit lately, and I'm really enjoying the latest improvements there. So I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, if you wanna come on one of our live streams,
No.
let us know, John.
I'm just saying, in general, I could prop it up.
We can talk to Eve. I'm sure she'd be happy to have you. But that's all I've got for today, John.
Awesome.
Anything else from you?
Same thing on our end. We're publishing a bunch of content as well. We've got webinars that are dropping soonish, and yeah, just go to octopus.com if you're interested. Well, we have a new webpage. It's all nice and dark. Yeah,
Look at
permanent dark
animation.
mode.
It's not in VR yet. What's going on, John?
Yeah, this is what I like to call the have you ever watched Bugs Bunny where they put things in the Acme machine and they go dun, 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 and it just kind of spits out the thing at the end? That's kind of what we do.
All right, we're gonna start digging through your code here, John.
Oh, good. Yeah,
This is
perfect.
cool. It's so this is a what is it called?
SVG.
Vector
Yes.
graphic. Yeah,
Yes.
nice. I like it.
Yeah,
Looks
I like
very
it.
sharp.
It does. Our design team really hit a home run with this one, I thought.
Yeah, except those look like buttons. I'm gonna throw my one complaint. in there.
Okay, fine,
Those look
fine.
like buttons. I want to click those and I can't.
Ed, there's no satisfying you. You always have to nitpick,
Those were buttons. Okay, that's
Yes, they are buttons, Ed.
not
Congratulations.
a button. Not a button.
Perfect.
All right, I quit giving you a hard time. Thanks again for joining me, John, and
Yeah.
all all of the folks that are silently watching and not leaving comments in our chat. All right, John. Take care. Have a good weekend, folks.
See you in the metaverse. Sorry, I had to.
That's a sick burn. Love
I
it.
know.